Okay, our next topic, we talk about something called the normal distribution. Okay. And we kind of introduced this a little bit earlier in the last section, so now we're going to expand on this a little further. So here's your typical normal distribution, this simple little bell-shaped curve. Bell-shaped curve here. All right, and again, this empirical rule still applies. All right, if we're within one, then 68% of that data is there. Between two of them, we're at 95%. And between three, we're at that 99.7. Those things still apply, but we're going to have an easier way of thinking about that. So this thing again is sometimes referred to as the bell curve because it has this bell-like shape to it. And again, what it is it is the normal distribution. And it turns out a lot of things follow this type of distribution as far as data. If you were to draw out a bunch of histograms and then, reduce your histograms to smaller and smaller ones, uh, then that frequency polygon would look like this bell curve. This is called the bell curve and the normal uh, distribution. Hold on here. Covering that up just a little bit. No, did not want that to happen. Just hang on a second here. My web browser is taking over my screen. Okay. So again, this thing here is called our normal distribution. When we deal with normal distributions, there's two types of data that we can talk about in a normal distribution. We can have what's called discrete data. Discrete data is where you have a limited amount of values that you can take on. One example would be if we looked at ages of students at Allegheny College, but we only took whole number age. We chopped off the months and weeks, so just your overall number of years, and that's it. So limited number of values with gaps between the values. Right? That's discrete data. Or if you were looking at exam scores on an exam. Generally, uh, most exams, at least I know the ones I have, uh, your score is going to be a whole number. You can't have a half a point. I don't deal in half points and things like that. I know some teachers might do half points and things like that sometimes. Uh, but even then, they're still limited. They don't go down to hundredths of a point or thousandths of a point. Right? There's always going to be some limit there. So, again, some examples: exam scores. A big one we're going to look at in a little bit: SAT test. Another situation we could deal with is we were to take a coin and flip a coin 8 times. Right? And record the number of heads. How many heads did we get on that coin flip? And just keep doing that over and over. It turns out the number of heads would fit one of these normal distributions, right? Where getting one head on 8 flips is something real low down here. Getting 2 is a little more likely. Getting 3 is a little more likely. Getting 4 is a little more likely. 5 and so on, all the way through. It's going to fit one of these distributions. Those are just a couple of examples there. And then the second possibility is what we call continuous data. Continuous data. And continuous data can take on all values in a range. Now, for our purposes, it's not going to make any difference. We're not really going to be dealing with this situation here and having to set this up and work it out. That's something that you deal with in a regular statistics class. But continuous data can take on all values. So things like height, weight, again, weight of infants, height of. Another one here, it's kind of interesting. If you look at the ages of trees in a forest. Okay, now this would be a more of a natural forest here, not a forest that's been clear cut or cut down and then replanted, managed. That's a different situation. But if you were to look at a natural forest, uh, then the age of the trees in that forest would actually also fit across a normal distribution. Okay. Now we're going to use that normal distribution to compute the likelihood of falling between two values. Right? So perhaps as an example, if we took the SAT test, scores on the SAT test range between 200 and 800, and you get just a whole number score, anything from 200 up to 800. So we might ask questions. What's the likelihood that what percent of people score below 600 on an SAT test, or above 600, or between 300 and 600? Yeah, different things like that. And we're going to be looking at solving those problems. And what we have to do is we're going to introduce a tool, which for us is going to be a chart that we're going to use. And so we're going to talk about that in our next video.